back. Well, the Egyptian government's made a number of moves against the Muslim Brotherhood since the group won 20% of parliamentary seats in 2005 elections. The Muslim Brotherhood members charged in the trial we've been talking about were arrested back in December of 2006. In January of 2007, a Cairo court dismissed all charges against the defendants and released them. But moments later, police rearrested them, and just a few days later, the president ordered the cases to be transferred to a military court. 2 months later, Egypt's parliament passed constitutional amendments that ban the creation of political parties based on religion. Critics say those laws target the Muslim Brotherhood. And over the past year, authorities have detained hundreds more members and supporters in security sweeps. Many were picked up in small towns such as these. Well, this comes at a time when the Muslim Brotherhood's been seeking to boost its own image. Some allege that the Muslim Brotherhood's been involved in terrorism, a claim which it fiercely denies. In recent years, it's gone to great lengths to disassociate itself from violence, condemning al-Qaeda attacks and violence against civilians in Iraq. Yet, the Egyptian government crackdown has been relentless. Still, the Brotherhood continues its overtures amid claims of betrayal. It's kept away from the recent wave of strikes. And perhaps more importantly, the Brotherhood's decided to boycott local elections in a bid to reduce political tensions. Join us again, our guests in Cairo, Mustafa Al-Feki, also in Cairo on the telephone, Essam El-Erian from the Muslim Brotherhood, and Washington, D.C., Sama Shahata from Georgetown University. Professor Shahata, let me come to you first of all to ask you about the basis for the Muslim Brotherhood these days. Authorities have gone to great lengths to try to disrupt it. Is it fractured? Are there splits within the group about what direction to take?
I think like any normal political organization, whether it's the Labour Party in England or the Democratic Party in this country, the United States, there are, of course, different opinions within the Muslim Brotherhood, opinions about all different kinds of things, whether to engage in politics and elections or whether to boycott, the role of women and minorities and so on. But these are, I think, the normal types of splits. I don't think that the Muslim Brotherhood is in danger of its existence or in danger of splitting in a kind of radical way, making it insignificant.
Mr. Al-Erian from the Muslim Brotherhood, when you sit down to have long discourses about the future that the party is taking, do you see yourself perhaps lining up as an official opposition at some point against Gamal Mubarak, the heir apparent to the current president, and being effectively part of the establishment?
I think it is a mistake to summarize the future of this country in Mr. Gamal Mubarak. It is a big story now. We are living in uncertainty conditions. We are facing the unknown. After closure of all the doors for all people, for all opponents, for peaceful and gradual reform or change, according to the law and the constitution, you are facing the unknown. Pressure on the Muslim Brotherhood will create and lead to more solidarity and more unity of the organization, not splitting that at all. And also, our future is linked to our present and our past. We are 80 years old, facing many problems in this long history, and we come successful from every pressure or every campaign against us since the monarchy till Nasser period and this period now. I think the future of this country must be discussed frankly according to the last 2 years, which creates more and more nervosity in the regime and more anger in the chest of the people and deterioration of all services all over the country. We are facing in first time in our history, our long history from the ancient times, a bread crisis. This is a very, very big alarm to all people in the regime and politicals and academics, and even for all the international community, because the stability of Egypt is not an easy matter. It is a very critical country in a very critical region.
See, one of the reasons I've asked you the question about sort of lining up alongside the official establishment, if you like to call it that, in Egypt, is because in 2005, when you were arrested and then released, you said, isn't it possible that the security mentality has changed, meaning that at that time perhaps there wasn't quite so much pressure on members of the Muslim Brotherhood? Do you think that's changed?
This is the same statement that the military verdicts and the police crackdown against Muslim Brotherhood cannot change their minds or cannot change their procedures or activities. We are still struggling against corruption, against dictatorship, for the sake of the people and for our future and the future of our sons and grandsons. We are facing a link between dictatorship and corruption now, and we are fighting not alone. The people of our country now are fighting against corruption when this corruption intervenes to the skeleton of their lives now. We are facing a very critical situation in our country. We are national enough not to think of our future only, but the future of our country as a whole.
Samir Shahata in Washington, D.C. from Georgetown University. One of the reasons I'm pushing this point is because there are some people who believe that the Egyptian government, the establishment, is more afraid of other groups, perhaps groups like Kafir, meaning enough, than it is of the Islamic, the Muslim Brotherhood. That it's actually worried more about sort of unrest being fomented amongst the working classes, perhaps the strikes we've recently seen, and that might be more violent and more damaging than anything that comes from the Muslim Brotherhood.
I don't think that's exactly the case. I mean, certainly the Egyptian government, the Egyptian regime, is not worried about groups like Kafaya enough that was formed in 2004. A group like that has only been able to get a couple of thousand people on the street. They've not been able to mobilize tens or hundreds of thousands of people across Egypt. Also, the existing legal political parties are really skeletons. They're parties on paper, but they don't really have mass support. The Muslim Brotherhood is really the only major social and political organization in the country, the only real political party, more so even than the National Democratic Party, which isn't a party in a traditional sense. But I do think you're right that the Egyptian regime is worried about the labor unrest in particular because it is not directed. It has the potential to blow up. And in fact, Egypt has witnessed in the past a number of times in which there have been riots as a result of the reduction of subsidies, most famously in 1977, in which dozens of people were killed. There was insecurity in the streets for a number of days and so on. And of course, the regime is worried about a situation
exactly,
like
many
that,
people do see this as a possible repeat of that. Let me go to Mustafa Al-Feki. I'd like you to close this debate, member of the ruling National Democratic Party, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. If, as Professor Shahata says, there's no need for you to worry particularly about groups such as Kafir, if there's no need, as you say, to worry about the Muslim Brotherhood, let me ask you this. Why on April the 6th, then, was it necessary, when there was a threat of labour unrest, to put 1.5 million security officers on the streets, almost 50 to 1, one security officer for every 50 Egyptians? Why did you need to do this?
In a country like Egypt, which is well known in history by being one of the most religious states on earth, religion is playing a very active role. That's why such environment could be easily used by the Muslim Brothers. Not all the Egyptians, all those who are in the street supporting them are Muslim Brothers, but they are sympathized with them. Number one, because the slogans of religion is there, which is so attractive for any Egyptian Muslim. Secondly, because they are under pressure from the government, and the people are attracted always to act against the authority, whatever it is. But I can tell you, the Muslim Brothers are using the sufferings of people. We have a lot of problems, as Dr. Iran has just mentioned, bread, water, etc., etc. These kind of crises are used by the opposition in general and the Muslim Brothers in particular to do what is going on in the Egyptian street now. That's why the government is completely afraid of the reactions to this kind of opposition, which is going to take a violent attitude maybe in the near future.
Volatile
That's why
times.
taking these precautions is natural from the government.
Indeed, volatile times for Egypt. Thank you very much indeed, Mustafa Al-Feki, for joining us, representing the National Democratic Party and chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. Samir Shahata from Georgetown University, assistant professor of Arabic Studies there. Thank you too for your thoughts and joining us on the line. Essam El-Erian, we would have had you in a studio, but it wasn't working today, but the telephone was Good enough. We got the point of view, we got the message. Thank you for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We do like your comments, your suggestions. Email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. From all of us on the team, bye-bye.